Mr. Speaker, let me start by acknowledging my colleague and friend Darian Fenton. As Mr Chevelle has said, she's done a lot of work on this bill, but not only on this bill, but many years promoting the rights of workers in this country, and I think that that's worth putting on the record. I've been appalled at the contributions from the other side of the House, honestly. We had Mr Bennett going on about mandatory rules this, mandatory rules that. It was going to undermine workers' rights. I don't think there's an understanding of the importance of having strong minimum rights in place that provide guidance and provide the base on which we build. And we are part of international obligations to provide a strong mandatory framework. So I want to say that. Then there's been the rewriting of history, which has been absolutely fascinating. And Mr Hanare gave a very good analysis, except he forgot to mention what happened as a result of the Employment Contracts Act, which actually ripped out the award system, which did actually provide quite significant redundancy coverage for workers in this country, and left us in a situation where there was no statutory right, and it was limited to those people who negotiated in individual or collective agreements their own rights. None of that was mentioned. And then there was all this commentary about do-gooders across this other side of the House. Well, frankly, if promoting workers' rights and ensuring that there are protections for workers in hard times is being a do-gooder, I'm proud to be one, and so are my colleagues. This bill amends the Employment Relations Act to provide minimum statutory entitlements for employees in the event of dismissal for redundancy. And I want to reiterate the point that's already been made. This was a unanimous recommendation of the Public Advisory Group on Restructuring and Redundancy. The employer and union representatives, both parties understood the importance of having these protections. And at times of record job losses, 80% of New Zealanders having no protection against redundancy is just plain wrong. And the other side of the House still have the opportunity to do the right thing here tonight. So 80% of workers in our country don't have a right to redundancy protection at the moment. Now, it's not going to replace their job, but it will certainly help them and their families over a period of time until they do find a new job. I was interested today that the Deputy Prime Minister said we're through the recession. Well, tell that to the 170,000 New Zealanders who are unemployed, 7.3% compared to Australia's 5%. And many more people are underemployed and are struggling to make ends meet. And in the area I work in Auckland and Maungakiekia, I talk to people who are struggling because they've lost their job. They've lost hours of work. They've had little or no pay increases over recent times, and they're facing rising prices. We need to do something to send a message that this Parliament recognises that we are in hard times and that should be minimum protections against redundancy. So this bill is particularly important at this time. But this government has failed New Zealanders through hard economic times. You failed in this recession to respond appropriately. Look at the rate of unemployment. And unemployment isn't just numbers. Unemployment is about people without jobs, people who are struggling to make ends meet. And there is a lack of empathy from the other side of the House, and there's certainly a lack of action from this government. And I compare that to just about every other country in the OECD where there's been active attention to job creation and protection of workers' rights. But not this government. This is about rebuilding a minimum code. This is still about us rebuilding after 9 years of Labor where there was much done. 9 years, Ms Lee, where there were regular increases to the minimum wage, where there were a number of employment protections put in place. So let's not rewrite history. Many New Zealanders think there is a right to redundancy. New Zealand workers are in fact the cheapest and easiest in the world to sack. Is that something that the other side of the House is proud of? That we are among the cheapest and easiest to sack in the OECD? Well, it shouldn't be something you're proud of. It's about people. It's about, as others have mentioned, people who lose their job, who struggle, who have to deal with the emotional consequences of losing their job. as well as the financial consequences. So I urge the other side of the House to take this seriously and do the right thing.
Order.
Very good.
In reply, Darian Fenton.
Mr. Speaker, well, first of all, I want to thank the Green Party and the Māori Party